music.
Alrighty, welcome to another episode of On the Clock, the Just Baseball, Amateur Baseball, and MLB Draft Podcast. I'm Jared Perkins, that's Tyler Jennings. We have an awesome guest with us today, Coach Moose, Coach Corey Muscara from Wake Forest, pitching coach there. Coach, how are you doing today?
Great. I'm excited to get the season going, back in the office and ready to rock.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on, talk a little bit about pitching, some of the guys that you have coming in. But the first question we always ask guys, especially first-time guests that we have on, is just take us a little bit through your coaching journey, kind of how you've gotten to where you are today.
Yeah, I started at Southern New Hampshire University. I went over there and worked for Scotty Loazzo, who was my assistant coach at Franklin Pierce. Jason King was our head coach, who's now at Vanderbilt. And then from Southern New Hampshire, I went to Binghamton, then back to Southern New Hampshire. Then I spent 5 years at St. John's with the legendary Ed Blankmeyer. And then I went to Maryland, and I was with Rob Vaughn for 4 years. Rob, Anthony Papio, Matt Swope. And then this is going to be my fourth season at Wake Forest right now.
I love it. One thing that Wake Forest is always known for is the pitching lab. Kind of talk about that and the advantage that kind of gives you all in terms of getting arms and being able to develop pitchers at Wake.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, Coach Walter had the foresight to put this whole thing together back in 2016, 2017. At the time, it was really kind of an outside the box idea. There really wasn't a lot of these. And it's been huge for us, for a lot of reasons. Like, one, it's allowed us to have more personnel, which is probably the most valuable thing, is we have a lot of people that can help in terms of developing pitchers. It's allowed us to get some insights that are very valuable. And it's allowed us to create space where we can have a lot of people. We were just talking about this before the show, but the seminar we do allows us to bring a lot of great pitching minds in, and we can kind of get to cherry pick ideas from different people and continue to grow our knowledge base of the subject and try to look at it from a lot of different lenses. So the entire concept of the lab is awesome. There's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of information. And our job is just to try to simplify it as much as possible and make it actionable. So we're really lucky. It's awesome. And more than anything, it's just a great space for our pitchers where they feel like it's theirs. And up until recently, it's like, there's always been, batting cages and the cages and like places for hitters to go work, but there's never really ever been a place for like pitchers to call home. And, we have that, which is really cool. So.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think it's become a huge part of the game in terms of development at the college level. And for you all, again, you're always known for having some of the top arms, but you're also known for having some of the top bats as well. Thinking about your fall that you've had this year, I know you're trying to replace guys like Chase Burns, Josh Hartle, Michael Massey, and a bunch of other arms that you had. You brought in guys like Matt Dallas, Duncan Marston, Logan Lunsford. What's been the transition like, kind of moving from those guys and really getting the next group of arms ready?
Yeah, so this has been a really exciting fall. We just have a lot of depth, and what's interesting is, like, I've been asked so many times, like, what do you think the rotation's going to be? I feel like I get asked this question once a day, and candidly, I have no idea. Like, they're gonna have to earn it, And I've never been in a position. I think this is year 16 of coaching. I've never been in a position where, we're in January and I genuinely don't know who the 1, 2, and 3 are. But what's cool is, like, there's like 6 or 7 candidates that could easily do it. And I'd be really perfectly fine with any of them, So it's going to come down to, who's performing and who's being the most consistent. And one of the jobs that I've been thinking about a lot lately is how we get everybody on board with buying into whatever role that they earn. I was telling the guys the other day, like, hey, if it was up to me, every single one of you would throw 100 innings and be a first-team All-American and be a first-round pick. I would love nothing more than for all of you to have that. But the truth of the matter is that's not happening. Like, that's impossible. So we have to find out, what you do with your opportunities, what you make of them, and how can we collectively put this together so we are the best unit as one. And we're going to have some guys be selfless. There's going to have to be some guys that have started on Friday nights that are going to have to be middle relievers. There's going to have to be some guys that maybe they want to be a high pick this year and maybe they don't end up being a starter. Like it's going to happen. And so the tricky part, I think it's tricky always, but I think it's trickier now more than ever with the portal and like this society where like if I don't get mine, I'm leaving. So we really are going to have super candid conversations, and we're going to have to, find a way to like meet guys in the middle somewhere where they feel like they're valued, they feel like they're getting better, they're really bought into what we're doing, and it's going to be for the greater good. And that's our greatest challenge with this pitching staff this year. Like we don't have a Chase Burns or a Rhett Lauder this year or a Teddy McGraw. But we have we got a lot of guys that are comparable to like a Cam Manassi or a Seth Keener, they're pretty good. And we have a lot of them. So it's going to be, and the other thing is we have some freshmen that are uber talented. Like we have some freshmen that could be first rounders someday. So we also have to be able to get them innings and cultivate their growth. And it's going to be challenging. So it's just part of, every year presents different opportunities and different challenges. The other thing I'll say too is like college baseball. It's funny. Like my brother-in-law pitched in college and pitched at Richmond, and he's like diehard college baseball fan. So whenever I go home for break, like for the holidays, he's always asking me questions. And he's like, where do you think this staff ranks? I'm like, honestly, it's probably the deepest and potentially best staff I've ever had. But it's all relative because like all the best teams are completely loaded. They have so many players that it's not like it used to be. Like if this was a staff, 7 years ago, you'd be like, this doesn't even seem real, But I can name 15 to 20 teams that probably have depth like we have, and that's what is happening now in this whole reshuffling of college baseball is the higher the higher level teams are all loaded. Like every single team has a plethora of guys, So the question is going to be is like, not if you have talent, like everybody's got a lot of talent. It's going to be how do you manage the talent? How do you deal with expectations? How do you deal with the personalities? That's going to be the separator.
Yeah, and I think the awesome thing that you kind of mentioned is that you've kind of set those expectations with a lot of those arms, right? They kind of know going into the season they're going to expect. And I think that friendly competition, like when I was at Nevada, we had kind of the same thing. Like we knew who the Friday night guy was going to be, but we didn't know who Saturday or Sunday was going to be. But all those guys saw it as like a competition to like better each other, which was in turn really helped the team develop those arms on the mound and actually be able to win more games because those guys were kind of pushing each other.
Yeah, I think it's essential, right? Like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you surround yourself with guys that are hungry and competitive and they buy in and they're selfless, like you're going to be better for it. But in the same vein, like if you have a bunch of guys that are sitting in the corner of the room complaining, that also becomes cancerous, and then it grows into that. And what's also interesting is because of these massive amounts of roster turnover we have in college athletics nowadays, everybody likes to talk about culture, but it's such a like each year is completely different now, more than ever. Like it's like you have this, it's a blessing and a curse. You have this fresh start every year. You have this new opportunity to do it right. It's more of a fresh start every year than ever, but it's brand new every year. Like there's not as much of this holdover, this is the way we do it. Like it's every single team's got 25 to 30 new players. It's insane. It's a brand new team every year,
Yeah, and that's one question I've been asking all the coaches that we've had on so far is what do you have to do different, right, to build some of that team chemistry and really I mean, I'm sure it starts on day one as soon as all those guys are in the locker room, but are there new things that you have to try
to
out?
be honest, I think it, not to interrupt you, but I think it starts in recruiting.
Yeah.
Like I think it starts with who you bring in. Like you have to be very mindful of who you select because time is precious. So like if yeah, you hope that your standards and your way of doing things will, you know, right the ship, if you will, or bring people up or elevate people, right? But because it's brand new every year and you don't know how long people are going to be there for, you have to kind of be really mindful on it in the selection process. And you have to do your best to vet the right people on the front end, because the more of the right people that you think you get, the better odds you have of putting together what you're looking for. And
Yeah.
then obviously you have to make it a priority in your day to day. And it's not just words and rhetoric. Like your actions have to align with that. Like anybody can say the right stuff. I mean, you could put every single coach on here and they're going to say the right things. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do. It's about the actions that you take, the steps you take forward. Now it's like the seminar, right? Like we talk about this all the time. Like people are like, oh, do you like want to share like what you're doing? And it's like, look, like I heard Cliff Godwin say this one time. I'll never forget it. I was at Maryland, and it was my first year at Maryland, and they kicked the crap out of us. And it was a weekend series, and we were lifting in their gym on like a Tuesday or something because it was spring break week. And Rob Vaughn went up to Cliff and was like, "Hey, like your two strike approach is awesome. Like you guys have this great two strike approach. Would you mind talking to me about it?" And Cliff was like, "Yeah, I have no problem telling you everything because I don't know that you can execute it like I can." And it's kind of funny that he's saying it, but it's true. It's never about what anyone knows, right? Like all of the top coaches know things, right? It's about like what are your actions, align with, and what do you demand of your players, and like what do you allow, what do you tolerate, what are you looking to influence? How do you write the lineup? Does your lineup mirror the actions of what you're preaching? Like if guys are out of line, like do you handle it in a certain way, right? Like how do you treat your players? How do you speak to your players? What kind of time allocation do you put to all the players, right? That's how culture is disseminated. That's what you attract in your organization. So it's never about knowledge. It's never about who's the smartest guy in the room. It's always about what do you tolerate and how do your actions align with that.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And before I turn over to Tyler for his questions, I'll just say like that's kind of the sense I got from the ABCA convention, right? Is that you can learn from all these guys, you can take all these notes, but like how are you going to act on it, right? And so it's great to learn and it's great to really pick up those tips and tricks, but if you don't implement it or if you don't take what you learned and actually put it into action, like are you actually having that kind of impact?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler, turn over to you.
Cool. I'm going to pick your brain here a little bit. Going from Rhett Lauder to Chase Burns, kind of comparing the two, because they're, in my opinion, I think they're two different archetypes. One's a pitchability master, one's a stuff master. What were the challenges and what were the successes you had with kind of coaching those guys and working with their arsenals?
Yeah, I mean, they're vastly different, right? I mean, let's just start from a simplicity standpoint. Burns is throwing grenades, right? and Lauder is, an archer that's trying to hit the bullseye, both incredibly effective, but totally different. What makes Lauder successful is a lot of things. Okay. Number one, he can throw a lot of different shapes to all quadrants of the zone. So what makes him super unique is he was really an early adapter to the two fastball profile. It's funny when he was going through his drafting, I had a lot of questions like, are you sure that his fastball quality is going to play? And now you look at the big leagues and you look at the starters, and they're all multi fastball shaped guys, right? Like that's the new age. He's an early adapter to that. He was throwing fours and twos in college and putting his fours to both sides of the plate and twos to both sides of the plate. And now, like, that's what like the prototypical starter looks like in the show, So what's really beneficial about the multi fastball system and using two multi fastballs is it's old school baseball, and it was demonized for a little bit, but like I can go into a whole dissertation on this, but what happens when you have a multi fastball is you're going to miss the barrel, right? Like you can run a two seam in on somebody, you can get above the barrel with a four seam, and you don't need to have great quality if you exit your location strategy and your vertical approach angle is good, right? So he was a very early adapter to that, and he got really good at that. He understands vertical approach angle at a very high level. He actually wrote our code for our zone adjusted VAA, right? So like that's number one. He commands his fastball to both sides of the plate. He's not afraid to get in on both sides. He can throw his changeup. It's a plus changeup. in every count. And obviously he learned how to manipulate shape on his slider. Rhett's superpower, besides the fact that he has a really well-rounded arsenal and that he has the ability to use these pitches, is he believes he can make every pitch. His self-confidence and his I don't know anyone in my whole life that's more self-assured than Rhett Lauder. He is like the most self-assured person I know. He's not braggadocious. He's not like over the top. He's just absolutely certain in who he is, and he's very confident. It's such a stabilizing presence, and he's adored by his teammates. Like, he's just awesome. Like, he's just steady, rock solid. And the other thing about him is he is and this is what something that him and Chase have very much in common, is he absolutely is a ball player winner. Like, the dude cares deeply about winning. It's always about winning over everything else. If you were to ask him, like, what's his best quality, he's like, I win. Like, he cares about winning. And it's all he values everything based off of that. Now you go to Burns, and you got like just rocket ship type stuff, like shapes like that are ridiculous, you know? So, but he also has his crazy work ethic and crazy competitive nature, and also well liked by his teammates. So he's a great teammate. But it's vastly different. Like, he's not trying to throw fastball in, fastball away. He's going low, middle up. You know, like, he's going breaking ball, middle, breaking ball down. Like, he doesn't have like 4 quadrants he's trying to work everything through. He's not like trying to sequence you in different ways. It's like, spin it for a strike, vaporize you up, spin it down. You know, like, vaporize you up, spin it down more. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, here's my stuff and I'm coming at you. Now, what he had to be able to get good at was repeating his delivery. He had to repeat it. He had to make his delivery more efficient so he could get consistent shape, so he could be in zone more. The competitiveness, never a problem for that dude. He's an animal. Like, he actually blacks out on game day. He's a fire-breathing dragon, you know? So, like, didn't have to work the mental game at all with him because he's a savage. Didn't have to do anything with his work ethic because it's through the roof. The talent's through the roof. He had to refine his delivery. He had to understand how to differentiate curveball and slider. He had to understand where to be on the rubber so he could be able to, you know, get in zone more consistently. He had to learn how to hold a running game a little bit better than he did. So, like, those were kind of differences. With Rhett, like, I would watch video. I would do the scouting report, and I would write it up, and I'd give it to him. And every Friday, we'd go to the other team, and he basically would, like, by looking at the scouting report and watching video of me, he basically would script out what he was going to do the first time through the lineup. And then every inning after, like, I'd go up to him in between them, like, all right, what do you want to do this guy? What do you want to do that guy? Probably the only pitcher I've ever had that, like, I gave free reign to script everything and basically decide what he wanted to do. Whereas Chase was just like, you know, just tell me what I'm doing, you know, like, I'm going at him, you know? So different, but both fun to coach and both excellent in their own ways, you know?
I do want to ask you this: Chase Burns' slider, is that the best pitch you have ever seen or like ever coached? If that's the best way for me to put it.
I think a Teddy McGraw fastball is.
Okay.
Teddy McGraw has the best stuff I've ever seen. For me, he was like the Mona Lisa that people never got to see. Like, Teddy McGraw in the preseason, the year that he blew out in 23, I have never seen anything like it to this day. Like, I get asked all the time, like, who's got the best stuff of anyone I've ever coached? Is Teddy McGraw. Teddy McGraw had, I mean, that preseason, he was 96 to 99, 5'3" release height, 20 lift, and dotting it. And it was like, he was so in zone. He threw a strike to Nick Kurtz that was the top rail at like a -2.9 at 98. And I was just like, what? I've never seen that before. I don't know if I've ever. And he backed it up with a curveball that was like a 630 tilt, -20 at 86. And I was just like, what is going on right now? Like, it's an actual video game right now. And he had a slider that was sweepy. So he had like an 85-mile-an-hour slider that had sweep with like huge RPMs. He had downer 12.6 velocity. He had a changeup that had horizontal at like 90. He had lift on the heater. He threw a two-seamer, and he was throwing everything for strikes. It was like at one point he struck out like 13 guys in a row, and we were pretty good offensively. He struck out 13 in a row. We had to start putting guys on base because like we're like, dude, you haven't been in the stretch in like 3 weeks, you know? Like, and so that one crushed me when he got hurt. Like I was devastated because like I'd never seen anything like it. And anyone that was there to witness it will tell you the same thing. Like it was like generational. Like you're like, I might never see this again. Like this is crazy. So it's pretty cool that like, you know, in 2 years span, I saw 3 guys that you're like, whoa, like that's nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember seeing you all in so I went to the Maryland regional, and both Louder and McGraw threw in that. And I was like, I remember watching Louder. I'm like, oh, this guy's really good. And then McGraw came out. I was like, oh, okay. This guy's disgusting. It was just insane.
And he had taken a quantum leap from there. Like he had gotten like significantly better from that point. His command had improved, his shapes had improved, his stuff had improved. Yeah, so I'm really hoping he can get back to being healthy because if he can, there's gonna be a lot of people on this planet that are gonna know his name. So
100%. And then I wanted to ask more about some of the arms because you mentioned the depth this year being as deep as it's ever been for you. Who are some standout guys personally for you? Like I know Duncan Marston has been electric this fall, but some of the other guys like Matt Dallas or even Joe Areola, some of those guys that could be kind of unknowns to some of the best fans in college baseball.
yeah, they're all different, right? Like they're all different. I guess I'll just kind of go through all of them quickly. You know, Areola has probably our best stuff on our team. It's a lot of velocity from the left side, high carry heater, huge vertical spread, like big downer, negative curveball, and a pretty good like cutter slider hybrid in the middle. His changeup it's not bad, but it's definitely the 4th pitch. You know, the fastball and curveball are plus, and the slider's probably a slightly above average. It's just all about command. Like if he can dominate counts and win the zone, he has first round stuff. It's all going to be about his performance and how does he command it and can he leverage counts and can he get ahead. Dallas is very similar to Hartle. It's a super east-west spread. He throws a 4-seam, but it acts as a true cutter. It's honestly very comparable to Louder's cutter. It's a little bit more hoppy. Like he'll throw it at like 12 vert with some cut, but he throws it in like the 90-92 range. He's got pretty good command of it. He has more sink than Hartle had. So it's definitely he's a supinator and he seam shifts the 2-seam. So it's more of a east-west kind of like think like a little bit like Roy Halladay-ish where it's sinker cutter, kind of like Hartle did. I would say his curveball is not quite as good as Hartle's, but it's pretty good. And he throws like a little bit of a verti slider, and he's got some depth on the changeup. So he's like a 5-pitch guy. He'll work in like, you know, Areola is like 92 to 95. We'll run up some 6s and sometimes a 7. You know, Dallas is like an 88, 92 guy, but nothing he throws is straight, and he's got a lot of pitches. Then you got Logan Lunsford. Logan has arguably the best fastball command I've coached. It's really, really good fastball command. Low release height, ride. He's like a average 20 carry guy from 5'4". But he can go all 4 quadrants with his fastball, which is really hard to do and rare today. So it's a good fastball profile. You know, his freshman year at Missouri, he had a really high changeup usage, and he had a really outstanding freshman year. He led the SEC in strikeouts by all freshmen. And he threw his changeup, I want to say like 35% of the time. And then last year, he lowered the changeup usage to only 15% of the time. And he was throwing like close to 70% heaters. And he saw a dip in production. But like that's one of the reasons why I wanted him so bad. I was like, dude, if we just throw the changeup more, he's going to be fine, you know. So I like him a lot. His breaking ball has gotten a little bit better. He's like 90-93, might touch a 4. but it's good fastball quality. It's good fastball command. It's a really good changeup. Blake Morningstar, he's like 92, 95. We'll touch a 6. We've changed his arsenal. It's, a generic fastball. It has, 15, 16 carry from like a 5'6" 5'7" release height. Trying to get him to also two-seam it so he can have 2 fastball profiles. His cutter is really good. Borders on like a cutter slider hybrid, but he throws it with velocity and it's good. The curveball has got a lot of depth and a lot of velocity. It's a plus pitch. We went from sweeper to curveball with him, and then our lab coordinator taught him a kick change, and that's been really awesome. The kick changes throw like a lot of exotic shapes at you, but like most guys can't command them. He does throw his first swing decisions, so he's a competitive kid. You got Griffin Green, who's at Virginia Tech. He was coming off a TJ this fall, so he threw good at times, but he was still like trying to get in sync with his delivery. And he looks outstanding. He looked really really great towards the end of the fall. Starting to get in more in sync with his delivery. He's a power sinker guy, so it's like steep sink, crazy numbers. Like, I mean, I've seen him, and this isn't consistent. Like, he doesn't do this on the regular, but I saw him throw like a -4 and 18 sinker at like 94, and I was like, that's unbelievable. So like he has real sink, and he probably has the best slider on our team this year. It's sweepy. It's like 85, 87, really good pitch. And that's another guy. Like, he's won 15 games on Friday night in the ACC. You know what I mean? Like, he was the Friday night guy on the ACC regular season champs in 22. So he's another guy in the mix. Matt Bedford is another guy in the mix. We got him to have a 4-seam this year. Last year, he was predominantly a 2-seam guy, first base side of the rubber, would strike, close, and push. We moved him over to third base, got him more directional. Play the VAA game with the 4-seam, have the 2-seam off of it. The flush changeup. Louder made some adjustments with his slider, taught him his slider grip. So it's getting a little bit more, birdie sweet from a low release height. So that's exciting. His velocity was up this fall. Pretty much every time he threw was like 93, 95. And he's basically added 2 new pitches. And then you got Nate Wyasong, another freshman who's out of nowhere. Like, beginning of the fall, he was like 88, 91. By the end of the fall, he was like 93, 97 with a decent breaking ball. Hayden LeFew, another guy that we've had him up to 6, like lefty. The command's gotten a lot better. Josh Gunther looks really good right now. I'm super excited about him. He's another low release height ride guy, 93, 95. He's got 4 pitches. Luke Schmolke's gotten better. He's another one, cut ride. He's got like the death ball, the gyro, backwards breaking ball, kind of like Cole Rowland a little bit. Not as good as Cole Rowland's, but it's pretty good, and he's got a better fastball. Another guy who's pitched on Friday night. Slim Johnson looks good. He's made a little bit of a velo jump. He's been like 91, 93. He added a cutter. You got Will Ray. I'm missing guys. I can't even think of it. Troy Dresser's a freshman I'm excited about. Nate Britton is a kid we got from Campbell, who big arm strength. We had him up to 97 a bunch this fall, but we made some delivery adjustments. He was throwing like a steep 4-seam fastball with bad fastball quality and not a lot of strikes. Kind of lowered the slot, taught him a sinker. So now he's a little bit more east-west. Yeah, I'm definitely forgetting a guy or two. Cam Nelson's another guy, like a lefty with some interesting qualities. So that's pretty much the staff. And it's like, the hard part is like, it's a lot of people, but like, who's going to get the ball? Who's going to be consistent? Who's going to buy? Who's going to be okay if they haven't pitched in a little bit? I don't know. You know what I mean? So if I had to guess right now, like, I think Marston's got a good chance to be in the rotation. He was statistically our best pitcher this fall. I didn't even mention Chris Lavonis. He's another big arm, obviously. And then honestly, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see, so.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what you guys put together. And like Lavonis, I never saw Lavonis during the fall, but
he didn't pitch this fall. So he had a little bit of like bicep tendonitis, and we were trying to get him right. And then we were bringing him back slowly, and he had a little bit of a knee injury. So he's going to be a little bit delayed to start the year. His arm's great. He's healthy. He's throwing, but he had a little bit of a knee issue. So he'll probably will be like 4 or 5 weeks in until he's full go. So he hasn't thrown a lot yet. I've seen him throw like 4 or 5 bullpens, but it's very electric stuff. It's been 4 or 5 bullpens, so we got to see, how he progresses and what he looks like in game, etc.
Yeah, 100%. And then the last question I kind of want to touch on, that Omaha experience in 23. Obviously that's the pinnacle of the college baseball world. What was that like for you as a coach, being able to make it that far?
It was awesome. I enjoyed it. I tried to soak in as much of it as I could. I have a lot of friends that have been there as coaches, and the advice they all gave me was like, try to be as present as you can. A lot of people get there and they're running around doing like all this stuff. And so I would just like get up in the morning and like take my kids to go walk for coffee. I tried to be as present as I could in every game. Obviously we didn't win that Skeens Louder game, but that was probably the best pitch game I've ever seen in my life. I'll probably never forget it. I got to spend a lot of time with my family out there. My wife came with my kids, and it was pretty awesome. I'd coached at TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab, whatever they call it now, a few times because when I was in the Big East, Creighton used it as their home field, and the Big East tournament was there a couple of times. And then when I got to the Big Ten tournament was there. So I had coached and been in Omaha quite a bit, and I'd always visualized like what it would be like being there in the College World Series, and it honestly exceeded my expectations. So hopefully we can get back there soon. Hopefully this year. But it definitely was something I'll never take for granted, and I enjoyed it, and it was awesome.
100%. Jared, back to you, buddy.
Yeah, so we always like to wrap up with a couple of fun questions because it's on the clock. For you, when you're not thinking about pitching, what do you do to kind of unwind, relax, get away from the game?
I do. So I do Wim Hof. I do a lot of breathing. I need to regulate because I'm always like all over the place. It kind of slows me down, and then just spend time with my family and kids. Like we do a lot of board games, and basically it's still baseball when I'm out there throwing a ball to my kids. That's pretty much it. I'm pretty simple. I don't really have any other interest outside of my family and baseball. So that's it.
I love it. The next question we asked is if you could coach any team, past or present, which would it be and why? And that can be a team that you've coached in the past, or it could be like a team that you've just always kind of idolized or looked up to. It's probably a lot.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I love being at Wake Forest. So
yeah,
I would either say this team right now or our 23 team. Like just being present and being here. I really love Wake Forest. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Love it. And then the last question I got is if you had any advice for coaches wanting to start their career to get into coaching, what would that one piece of advice be?
Continually learn and do. I think, so many times like people are always looking like to network, or they're looking like, what's the avenue, what's the fastest way. And I've had a lot of former players that want to get into coaching. And the reality is a lot of guys, they don't want to do a job that doesn't pay well right out of the gate. And my answer is like, just start doing as fast as possible. Like get out there, go recruit, go coach, make mistakes, put your neck out on the line and do. And don't worry about like keeping up with other people. Like just invest everything you have into your team, into where you are now. Make those players as good as you possibly can. Spend as much time on those recruits as you possibly can. I just feel like a lot of times, like guys like, oh, I don't want to do that. It only pays this, or it only pays that, or so many hours. Guys get out of it, or like, they're always like they go to a job and they're always looking for the next job. They're like looking at how to politic to get to the next place. It's like, dude, just win where you're at right now. Like invest into those players. Do everything you can for that group to be as good as it can. And let's see what happens. Because at the end of the day, like the ultimate scorecard is how do your players respond to you? What do they have to say about you? And does your team win? And do you have good kids? Like if you do that enough, like you're gonna get any job you want. And I don't care if you start at the Division III level. I started at the worst Division II school in the country. Um, they were 7-43. They had never had a winning season, you know? So it doesn't matter where you start. It matters like how does your team perform? How does it improve? You know? And if you really love what you're doing, it doesn't really feel like work, you know? And the earlier you start, you're going to have to work through some financial hardships. So if you get afforded the opportunity to start early, you can be insulated from some of those financial hardships because it feels like you never really left college. You're just poor.
Yeah.
So what gets hard is when you have a family and you have responsibilities, and that's when it becomes challenging. But if you just go at it from out of the jump, then you don't know the difference. You're poor. You were poor before. You're poor now. It doesn't matter. You're just building what you're building in sweat equity.
Yeah, and I think that's like a perfect like life lesson to end on too, right? Because I think us as humans, we're always like future focused, like trying to figure out what the next best thing is. And it's like you just focus on where your feet are and being the best that you can be in your current position. Like all those future opportunities will come. Like you don't even have to think about them because if you just focus on being as great as you can be in your current role, like then you're going to be set.
Absolutely. I try to talk to my players about that every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And Coach, we can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us on the clock. We know you got a busy schedule. You're getting ready and prep for the season. We're excited to watch you all and wishing you nothing but the best.
Yeah, guys. Good luck with all your future endeavors. Good luck with this new journey you guys are on. And if you ever need anything, hit me up. All right.